I do my thing and you do your thing. I am not in this world to live up to your expectations. And you are not in this world to live up to mine. You are you and I am I. If by chance we find each other, it is beautiful. If not, it can't be helped. That is the Gestalt prayer. And the beauty of the prayer is to hold two truths. It's to hold two truths. It's not one without the other. How do you hold these two truths of hope and despair? Sometimes we are hopeful of a beautiful tomorrow, but then reality hits us and we break the bubble, and now we are disturbed with the truth. And the truth troubles us the most. And then we live the truth and we forget the dream. Suddenly hope becomes hopeless. But hope is hopeless without hope. And therefore you need to put hope back in the hopelessness. That is T.S. Eliot. Hope is hopeless without hope. Unless you put hope back in the hopelessness, hope is hopeless. Hello, check. Can you guys hear me on screen? So to everybody online and offline, we are planning to learn Gestalt. At least that's what we came in here for. Who knows what happens at the end of it. Gestalt is the design. It's the balance. The moment you don't see a design, that's a design. The symmetry, the asymmetry, the balance, the imbalance, everything that you see is the design. Gestalt is the design. Does the design help you? Does the design not help you? And Gestalt therapy is to find out what design supports you to continue the journey of your life. Now, be it relations, be it health, be it wealth, be it whatever. The Gestalt that I'm going to share with you is an interpretation of what Dick shared with me, my teacher from whom I learned. And he learned it from his teachers, and they learned it from their teachers, and eventually they all learned it from Fritz. If not for Fritz, Gestalt would have died again in those books in the libraries. I think Fritz brought Gestalt out in its entire integrity. It was just theory before that. And I think he recognized, he saw emotions, he saw the embodiment, he saw the polarities. He could see things that normally people wouldn't see. And I think it was Martin or someone who asked Fritz, what do you see when you see the client, or what do you see when you take a session? And I remember reading this. Fritz says, I see the obvious. And he says, I see the obvious in the here and the now, in a time when everybody's so busy with psychoanalysis, in a time when everybody's so much involved with knowing the past or what's happening. Here is a man so ahead of his time, challenging everything that they ever knew. And here, what he's saying is, I'm seeing the obvious. What's happening here? Is the leg moving? Is there a micro muscle movement somewhere? Is there stress somewhere? He's saying, I'm seeing the obvious. The client has traveled the entire past, those many years, and the client is here in the now with you. Fritz says, why are you now interested in the past of the client? The client has come from there into this present moment, and the client has brought all of that to you here in this moment. Be interested in that. Well, the guy was a genius. If not for the genius of Fritz, I think we wouldn't have Gestalt today. We wouldn't be able to see the obvious. He was a revolutionary, Fritz. The question is not why Gestalt, the question is what are you seeking in life today? And Gestalt is just one tool like every other tool. Gestalt only looks into the balance. Gestalt looks into the obvious. Gestalt looks into your narrative. Gestalt looks into your body. Gestalt is the design, right? It's what you present. It's the matrix. It's the constellation. The question is not why Gestalt. The question is, what are you seeking? What do you want from the sessions room? Or what are you coming here for? If you're coming here to learn Gestalt, well, that's one part of it, the academia. Are you coming in because you have troubled relationships? That's something else. Are you coming in because health is down, wealth is down, your business is, crashing down the wall? What brings you to this field? Yeah, and then Gestalt will have its processes and procedures to work with it, to understand where was this belief tied? What was happening with you when this was tied? What's unfinished? What's incomplete? What's not addressed at an early childhood? And all these things is what Gestalt will look into. As a therapist, our role is to be present so that they can bring out as much as the client wants in the field. And whatever is now available, the client decides what's to be worked on and how it's to be dealt with. And they do it so beautifully. Sometimes they are not able to do it by themselves because वो कहता है ना कि उनकी भी अपनी मजबूरियां है क्योंकि समंदर है और पीने का पानी नहीं. It's that kind of a wave that they bring. They have the resources and they have the problem, but it's so meshed in all of that they cannot see the solution. And then when they come on the chair, when they put things out there, and when they dissociate, they can see so much more. That what is available, that what they couldn't see before, and all of that is available in the space. Now they pick and choose. I think the therapist probes, the therapist challenges them and pushes them to the boundary to test and taste and see if it's okay to be there. Is it okay to go beyond? Is there something there beyond on the other side which they can bring and take back home? And all of that. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The chair continues. We go on and on and on till they find a collapse, which they most definitely find. Like the eagles, they leave the nest. Without the nest, they go and they fill those wind beneath their wings. It's all available in that collapse, in that moment, in the now. Gestalt is a concept. And through this concept, you can equate, you can evaluate, you can see, and you can understand all of that, be it metaphors, be it somatic mind, be it language, propositions, and all of that. As a therapist, it becomes such a potent tool. Fritz says it is so pregnant. It's about to be born because in the here and the now, there is a lot of drama happening. There's a lot of changes happening. There's a lot of resolutions happening. And it's in this very moment that so much is available of the client. As a therapist, this is a tasty food. As a counselor, there is so much resources over here. It's something that you cannot miss. It's something that you cannot go without. It's a must-have in your bag if you're a therapist, to evaluate, to challenge, to probe, it's a very radical approach. And I think it's so needed in times today to be non-judgmental with our projection, to look at it, and yet to challenge and to question and to look at those micro expressions which is happening in those nanoseconds. It's so important. And that gives the client so much room to spread their wings, to dance, and even to fall down, because they know there's a space for that fall, and then there is a space for that rise. The question is, who are they? And what are they seeking, and where are they going? And these are the answers that they find in a Gestalt moment. Who shouldn't take it? I think anybody who's serious with their life, who wants to bring some kind of change in some aspect of their life, should definitely consider Gestalt. At least be open to the idea that change is possible. Gestalt, therefore, is. Gestalt deals with what is and what is not. And if ever you miss what is not, have you really defined what is? That's a big understanding. There's something that you see and you form an understanding, but there's a lot more that you don't see. Well, that's the whole. The oldest story is the story of Shiva. Okay, Daksh Prajapati, he would run a Yagyashala, the place where, yagna hota hai. So in that yagna, he would in the fire, and through that the exchange happens. Okay, yagna is a metaphor for the exchange. Yagna is the metaphor for emotion. Yagna is the metaphor for transaction. क्योंकि यज्ञ में ही ये भाव होता है, यज्ञ में ये रस होता है, यज्ञ में ये ट्रांजैक्शन होता है, यज्ञ में ये कनेक्शन होता है, यज्ञ में लोग आते हैं, यज्ञ में एक एजेंडा होता है. अगर यज्ञ नहीं है, देन इमोशन नहीं है, रस नहीं है, भाव नहीं है. Okay, so Daksh Prajapati would run this Yagyashala, and he would be the Yajman, the right man, the principal man. He would be the Yajman who's running this. And through his Yagna, he would please the gods. And then one by one, gods would come down, and he would hand over his daughters to the gods. And imagine the power of this Yajman. He has the gods as his son-in-law. Imagine this man, right? He's so powerful now on earth that he's running this Yagyashala, and the gods, and he would always say that मैं अपनी सब बेटियों को एक एक करके भगवान को दूंगा, लेकिन एक भगवान को मैं अपने यज्ञशाला में आने तक नहीं दूंगा, और वो है शिवा. And he had his own reasons. कहता है कि वो बैरागी है, वो पहाड़ों में रहता है, वो विभूति लगाता है, वो भूतों के साथ नाचता है, वो कुत्तों के बीच रहता है. And that was Daksh Prajapati's understanding of Shiva. And he says, I will never invite this god into my Yagyashala. And it's evident that Shiva was the one with maximum wisdom, or he had the wisdom of the world. And he had so much of wisdom that he didn't want to participate in this transaction. So Shiva stayed away. Pahadon mein, Samshan mein, he would stay away from this worldly transaction because he has given up on world. And one of Daksha's daughter, Sati, had this crush on Shiva. Okay, she had this crush on Shiva, and she eventually started falling for Shiva. Typical Bollywood, right? A typical Bollywood, because we form our mythology, right? We are the ones who created our mythology, so we have this linear thinking. So we create the same mythology and the same films because we think alike. So the moment she started falling in love with Shiva, she started telling her father that, I'm in love with Shiva, and Shiva is this, and Shiva. The father says, impossible. This man is not coming over here. And she decides to walk out of her father's house. See, the Sati we know is a docile Sati. The Sati we know is an obedient Sati. But you see the characteristic of the Sati over here? The Sati is a revolting Sati. The Sati is someone who walks out of her father's house. This is not docile. This is not submissive, and this is not obedient. You get to see another character of Sati. Okay? So Sati leaves her father's house, and Sati goes and stays with Shiva. But somewhere inside, she's missing her father because she's feeling that my family is divided. I'm not able to bring it all together like my other sisters. So she's trying to convince Shiva that wo mera pita hai, and it's his world. Why are you affected, or why don't you come down to meet my father? Shiva discounts that. She goes and tries to tell her father that wo mera pati hai, and the father is angry. Shiva is absconding from that expression and emotion. You see, there is no transaction here. मतलब इनके बीच में यज्ञ नहीं हो रहा है. न भाव है, न रस है, न रिश्ता है, ये कट आउट है. And Sati is trying her best to explain to this man that man's viewpoint, and this man's viewpoint. वो पति और पिता के रिश्ते में मानो जैसे टूट सा गई है या बिखर सा गई है. And she's fed up of this. She's really tired of this conflict between both these places. And she decides, I'm going to end this. I'm going to end this. And she decides to walk into the same fire of her father's Yagyashala. She walks into it. And Agni bhi tabhi Sati se kehti hai ki I can't burn you. And the metaphor of she burning is not the actual fire of burning, but it's the fire of relationship stress. It's the fire of the effort that she's taking in. And then she burns herself over there and she transforms. That's what the story says. Listening to what happens to Sati, Shiv loses his shit. He's completely baffled over there, and that's where he comes. He takes the role of the Veerbhadra Kal, and he chops off the head of Daksha Prajapati. Now, on chopping off the head of Daksha Prajapati, ये यज्ञ रुक जाता है, रस रुक जाता है, भाव रुक जाता है, मिलन रुक जाता है, मिलाप रुक जाता है, transaction रुक गया, connection रुक गया, सब कुछ रुक गया. The gods are upset that life will come to an end because this whole transaction is stopped. And so they convince Shiva, and Shiva puts up a head of a god on Daksha Prajapati. And that's another story. And he puts that head and he leaves and he goes to the mountain again forever. And over here, Sati, she transforms. And she changes from that docile, obedient, volatile Sati into something more stronger, assertive, clear, doctrine. Yeah, and she becomes Parvati. Sati and Parvati. They're the same person, but the two sides. If you have to understand the full moon, you have to understand the dark side. If the dark side is meaningless, the full moon will not have its existence. So we are all conflicted by different ideas. We are all conflicted by different existence. We're all conflicted by different values sometimes. I want to go to sleep tonight. And when I sleep tonight, I set an alarm at morning 6 o'clock to wake up. And I'm so committed to wake up tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. But when morning comes, I want to snooze. When morning comes, I want to sleep. When morning comes, I want to delay that commitment which I had with myself in the night. The one who kept the alarm was me. And the one who doesn't want to wake up this morning is me. These are the two me's that exist in two different times. And they both are me, and they both have meaning to exist. They both have values. The conflict is this one doesn't come here and that one doesn't come here. There's a positive intention of both's existence. The chair is when we get both out to know what is the purpose of this guy or this intention or this part that exists in me, of this conflict that exists, who is this value or what is this existence here, and how this is supporting this and how this is supporting this, and how can we go back and forth, because it's not really a conflict. It's really some kind of a support system that happens, and through this movement, the client finds some resolution. The chair is a metaphor to bring out the conflicting parts in two ways, the top dog, the underdog. The chair is a place where conflicts are resolved, where unfinished businesses are touched upon, where two different values in the same time frame is addressed. The client is sitting here with you, and when the client gets up from here and sits there, what are you doing? You're not sitting here. You're moving with the client. Remember, you are holding the space for them. So you're not sitting here and saying, okay, tell me what happens. Okay. No, you see, you're moving with them. Because you're holding that space. You're not telling them to go to a place alone. You're walking it with them. A good therapy is when two people find their resolution. Remember, it's not either or. As a counselor, as a coach, as a therapist, you come across a lot of varied characters in your segment. Different characters with different roles, with different identities, with different characterizations. They bring in roles, they bring in role disparities. Now, you as a therapist, as a coach, as a counselor, it's very important that you access what archetype are they discussing? What kind of movement are they bringing to that space? And if you cannot view this through the lens of Gestalt, haven't you missed the details, these micro expressions and these miniature aspects which actually roots back to those unfinished, unresolved childhood issues? Because the problem that they face today, or the responses that they have today, is because of a missing archetype. It's because of an overimposition of an archetype. It's because of something that was not addressed at an early childhood. It is because of a trauma and abuse, something that was withheld back then. And today, what do we do in Gestalt? We just make sure that that which was withheld, that which stopped full growth, is allowed to grow again. We start the flow of water again. We untie what was tied in the past. This is especially for parents. When you see your children in a difficult situation, you can use this for a difficult parent-child relationship, and you don't know why it is difficult, but you can use it. Khalil Gibran, children comes through us, not for us. They are not in this world to live up to your expectation. So if you are a parent ever, it's very important to tell them that. You're not in this world to live up to my expectations. See, that's the Gestalt prayer. Very easy to say, but difficult to do. You give them choice and you give them space, or to hope for a long life, but from a place of their choice and not your expectation. Remember, you be the lifeguard to pull them up if they're drowning or if they want you, but don't tell them not to swim. And that's when you choke the energy around them that they can't make that decision in the body. And that's when you make it so difficult for them to leave if they choose to leave. You choke their layers, honor their choices, and then whatever is meant to be will be. And that's where I always remember Dick. Honor their choices, give them space, and go with God. Because it's beyond your control now. You can't hope for their safety by protecting them and keeping them in closed doors. That will be disaster. You are not letting them to bloom fully. What are you making? Bonsai children? No, right? You want them to grow fully. You don't make bonsai children. So you're not in this world to live up to my expectations. So I'm giving you space for the choices you make. And now I go with God. I'm there. Should you drown? If I have the capability, should you reach out to me, I will do everything in my capacity to stand with you. But then I'll go with God.
And in my mind, I was having not one person, but 4 very important people in my family: my husband, my 2 kids, and my daughter-in-law. And it was as if I was saying it to each one of them. And that last line, when we said it today, that if at some time we do meet, we do find each other. So that time, this time, I literally felt that I've already found them. And that was so beautiful. So now I think I realize that it is my responsibility. I carry the responsibility of how I've already seen it, and I'm so confident that I'm going to bring that into their lives. So it was very beautiful.
In my opinion, the moment you experience Gestalt, I don't say the moment you learn Gestalt, I say the moment you experience Gestalt, once it comes in your musculature, you are able to see the movement and the stillness both at the same time. You're able to identify the anger and the love at the same time. You're able to separate people, their behaviors, their contextual behaviors, and you're able to see all of this at the same time. The way you respond to people and situations begins to change, because now you understand that people behave differently in different contexts, at different age, in different space, with different people. And to understand the behavior of the people, we must be willing to learn the fish in the water, because I cannot learn the fish on my laboratory table. Right now it's a dead body. So to understand something, I need to dive deep into it. Gestalt is therefore that experience, which once it comes in my musculature, I'm able to witness the change as it changes, because it changes, right? What is constant? Do we have a reference of anything? Do we have a reference of anything that has been constant or that has been forever? Nothing. So when everything changes, we must be in allowance of the change that people bring in their lives. And therefore we must be able to have a relationship with evolving people. And each of you there at home, see how you can connect with the space. Yeah, and hold your hands today, hold your hands, hold each other's hands. Hold each other's hand, and don't use words, don't use voice. Just hold your hands and get a sense of what this connection is. Wherever you are, whichever part of the world you are, remember you can be connected. The illusion of being in one space, the limitation of creation that comes from one space, you can now open that up. Stretch forth your hands and feel the space. And take all of this within you for the nourishment of your body, of your emotions, of your relations, of your creations, and of everything. And tell yourself that you will preserve your muchness. You will preserve your muchness. Even if it does much in somebody else's world, you will preserve your muchness. And then you reach out to one another and you bow down to your own divinity.
اليوم راني معاك غدوة تاني متمني يكتب المكتوب ونكون حداك يا قلبي شوف هواك وين رماني فوق بحر صافي بمواج وداني معاه تبع رياح الحب وعندك حطني ودعني وصاني وقلي حبيبك ما تنساه الزينة ما درتي فينا أنا وقلبي حوسنا عليك ما لقيناها يا زينة ما درتي فينا أنا وقلبي حوسنا عليك ما لقينا.
Well, Gestalt is a dance. Gestalt is also stillness. Gestalt is the pause. It's like the wave that rises. You know, Gestalt is at every stage of life when the wave rises. Who are we when this wave rises? And then we settle down, right? We settle down. That's getting into the chaos and then settling down into stillness. There's a design, there's a pattern in all of it. Gestalt is a breakdown. Gestalt is also the coming back. It's the new birth. It's the understanding that the dead is a part of me. There's a place for that to be honored, to move past. And I think that's something which we must consider to bring home to our conflicts, to our unresolved areas, to areas that needs growth, to the areas that needs change, to the areas that needs new creative thinking. I think Gestalt is what we bring home and it stays with us. It's the sacred space. It's the space from where we grow. It's the vortex, right? It's the vortex from where we can create. It's a deliberate thought process. It's from where we can just change everything. It's being the dervish, and yet it's being something which is so structured. It's structure and at the same time it's the discipline, both. It's the polarities, it's the two, because it's always two and then the many that it takes to know the one. And that's the Gestalt.